Hey guys, we're back. We actually have a very special guest that we didn't even know about. This is Bill Watterson.
Surprise!
And he is the voice actor and face
mocap actor,
mocap actor for Jim Payton.
And the facial reference. We actually scanned Bill's face and mapped it to the character. So we had to add a little bit of extra
little fuzz,
and some extra definition because Bill's a nice slim guy and we need to bulk him up a little bit. But his face is Jim's face.
Yeah, you'll see
eyebrows.
If you look closely, guys, you'll see a subtle resemblance here. So, can you tell us a bit about what that experience was like, doing the acting for Jim?
Oh, it was such a blast. The writing is so solid. It was easy. The cast was top down. Everybody was on point at all times, and the writing was so natural and conversational that even when it got emotional or when it had these huge builds, it was never difficult. It was never. You said exactly what you would say in that situation.
Yeah.
It was never forced, and there wasn't a whole lot of, because of the nature of Jim's character, there wasn't a whole lot of space future techno mumbo jumbo.
Yeah.
That was other people's problem.
No.
I would just get to walk in and be like, yeah, whatever. Which is great. It was great. That's my pocket.
So you also did the motion capture stuff. Was that actually pretty physically exerting? Or
It is. I had done about 3 months of mocap on another game years ago. So I was experienced with the suit and some of the discomforts of the suit. Right. But that thing does not breathe. So no matter how cold they keep it, I think you have to turn off the AC for audio purposes. So the room can start to heat up, and there's lights everywhere, obviously. So you're drinking lots of bottles of water and not going to the bathroom at all. It's a very sweaty suit, and thankfully we got to do some stunts and some rolling around. It wasn't just the chatter, which is the most fun stuff to do.
Yeah.
But obviously, once your body heats up and the suit doesn't breathe at all,
pretty hot, pretty quick.
You're hot for the rest of the day. Yeah.
One of the things I've talked about in interviews that some people may not know about is, unlike most game mocap and VO that's done kind of per actor and sort of all separate and then brought together in the game afterwards, the technique that we used for LP3 actually had the cast in the scenes.
Yeah.
So when Bill's doing a scene with the actor that plays Braddock, who's his foreman, his boss, and Bonnie Roman, who's the scientist, the three of them are actually in that mocap volume at the same time, and we're taking that mocap data at that same time. So later on, when they go to do the camera angles, they've actually recreated that scene virtually, and now they can take the camera and move it around. It's the same technique that they used for Avatar film. And so, at least from the developer's point of view, what that does is it allows a much more natural performance, because Bill doesn't have to try to guess at who he's looking at and who he's talking at.
Just eyeball to eyeball the whole time. There were a couple off-the-cuff moments. I don't know how many of them might have stayed in the game, but it's just a testament to how much chemistry we're able to build by standing side by side and working together.
It's almost like
and rehearsing together and everything.
Doing a play or.
It was very much like doing theater, because you're getting all your coverage at once. In film and television, you would shoot the scene from a wide angle, and you would go in and you get close-ups on different actors. But because you're surrounded by cameras, you run the entire scene from beginning to end, like in theater.
I see.
And it's also like in theater in that you're imagining the environment and you're imagining the robots, and that there weren't that many actual tangible props that we used. It was mostly up there is a this, down there is a this, and it's cold. Go.
Which I guess would be quite a challenge when you're actually that hot in the suit.
Right. It's really hot on this ice planet, guys.
Yeah.
So I have to ask, as somebody who's seen all the cinematics in the game thousands of times now through debug, what was your favorite scene to work on?
Great question.
Within the confines of what we've shown so far. We want to give away an ending of the game.
Of course. There are some scenes, there are some very powerful scenes that we're not at liberty to discuss, but I love working with Gale. That is it was such a well-written dynamic. It's so fun. And Daniel and I had a rapport right away. And it was similar to the rapport of the characters, where he's super enthusiastic, and I'm like, yeah, whatever, kid.
Yeah.
That was our actual dynamic. So it was really fun. And he's a great actor too. He's just so enthusiastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of those Gale scenes are some of my favorite scenes in the game.
Yeah,
it's just like
he's got such great dialogue, and that's the other thing about the dialogue. It's not that it's just human and the way people talk, but everybody had an individual voice. You could hear it in your head when you read it before even meeting the other actors. everyone had a personality in every line, and it was consistent. And then when you see those changes over the time of the game in the characters, they're earned. I just thought it was just fantastic writing. Such a lucky thing to be a part of.
Some of those Gale scenes have some really great comedic timing.
Yeah.
Like at the end of the introduction scene when you and Gale are talking, and basically he's trying to convince you that the rig is okay, and you shake hands on it, and at the end you have a pause, and you're like, let go of my hand. He's like, okay.
Yeah.
I don't think that was an ad lib, but it almost felt like it was.
That one was actually.
It was.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there you go. I mean, there's a perfect example of how often in games, and I can say this from personal experience, how often in games do you see something that was a product of that particular instant in time?
Right.
Where everything that
rather
we
than
do
it being
is,
constructed.
Exactly. Everything we do is so planned. Okay, we've written the script. We've pre-laid out all the scenes that we need for motion capture. It's all based on basically these shot lists.
Yeah.
And being able to go in, and because of the technique we used, and because we had two actors that were capturing all of their motions and the VO at the same time.
Yeah.
That was another thing that we did. Is we were a lot of times in games, even to this day, what they do is they'll go in and record. They'll do all the motion capture. They'll do all the scenes, and then they'll go in and do the VO separate.
Right.
Yeah, I've
Just
seen
with
that
the guy
before,
sitting in the
and the shrugs don't come at a natural moment. The body language just doesn't match up with the tone of the delivery when you do that. Whereas this was 360.
You're getting very natural performances here. We actually had an awesome preview come out from VG 24/7 where they're talking about just how natural this is compared to like most games out there, and just how even just like little things like the banter of characters that you pass by in the Nevik base. I
love Crazy Neil.
Really good.
Crazy
If I could be anybody but Jim, it would be Crazy Neil. Oh, I love that character.
I was in Sydney about a month ago, and
has he got a fan base already?
He's got a fan base already. Crazy Neil, of course. They gave us a hard time for the fake Australian accent,
right?
But they'll
That's part of his craziness.
That's part of his craziness. Who knows if he's actually Australian? He might just pretend to be Australian. But that's another good point, which is Jim's very much like a grain-fed Kansas country boy, so to speak,
or Ohio,
or Ohio.
Maybe he's from Ohio.
I think his official character bio is he's from Kansas. In the future.
Fair enough.
But we've got a huge, kind of multicultural and multi-ethnic cast of characters. That was another thing that was really important for the team. Was we wanted to feel like an actual international expedition, not just.
And it totally does right off the bat. Yeah.
Another question I had is how much of Jim is you versus the character? I mean, how much of yourself did you kind of bring it? Because you're just observations. Your natural speaking voice sounds very much like the way he talks in the game. So I was just curious, kind of what the ratio is there.
Yeah, that again with just a great match with the writing. I use a lot of those phrases. I use a lot of those sort of cornpone mannerisms, but in sort of like a not dismissive, but in kind of a tough guy way.
Right.
That is very similar to how I speak or how I like to speak or how the characters I like speak. So it's it's like it's almost like music. Like if you're I play bass also. So there's some bands where I'm like, this is exactly the kind of bass I play. Super easy. And then in a funk band I'm like, ooh. So Jim was very much that. It was very easy to be conversational right off the bat. From that first monologue. I think it was a self-tape monologue at the very early beginning of the project. Was that 3.5 years ago?
Yeah.
As soon as I read the script, I thought, oh, this will be easy. Sometimes you read it and you're like, I got to get to work. I have to break this down. I have to construct this and that. But with that, it was just so conversational and in my voice that I felt. I put on a pair of cowboy boots and I was like, this is going to be easy.
Well, I remember the casting process. It was very interesting because for the character of Jim, it had the most convoluted casting process because we did an initial proof of concept kind of trailer, which was our revealed trailer, that was done with the CG house called Blur here in Los Angeles.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
And for the purposes of that, because we didn't have the final Jim character design yet, they actually went in and scanned an actor, one of their kind of guys that they used, and then they kind of made him look like Jim. And it's the animation quality and everything was excellent, but we needed a voice, and that's actually where you came in first. Was as sort of the guy to provide the voice for that trailer, and then we sat down and were like, okay, well now for the game we actually have to pick an actor who not only has the voice that we want, but also has to embody the facial features that we need and the expressions that we need and everything.
Yeah.
So, when you're doing these techniques of facial scanning and performance capture, you actually have to cast not only for the voice like you might for a traditional game, but also for the physical appearance as well. So we threw out the net again and said, okay, well, let's get all these actors in, let's get all these reels in and look at it. And it was one of those great examples of what we wanted was under our nose the whole time.
Yeah.
It wasn't until we went in and looked at all the other potential candidates that we realized that the guy who did the voice on a couple of lines for that first trailer was actually that was our guy. That was our voice.
And I think I'd had a full beard at the time too when I came back into Spark just by chance.
It was very cold
to read the monologue again. I had the monster Jim beard just by chance.
But it felt great to know that it wasn't just us being enamored with that initial read. That we had actually gone through the paces and done it. So definitely, I mean, in my mind, Bill is Jim and Jim is Bill. It's like, I'm always whenever I see Bill, I'm like, I mean Bill.
How's the boy?
Oh my God, he's real.
Hank.
I want to thank you for showing up.
Of course, my pleasure.
This is a nice surprise.
Anytime.
So. Look forward to his face, slightly modified, or somewhat modified, this August. Well, thank you guys for being here again.
Anytime.
And we'll be back in 10 minutes with D&D.
Take care.
Stay tuned.